So your name is?
Yeah, my name is Andy Ostrowski. I'm currently a suspended Pennsylvania lawyer. I have been suspended from the practice of law since February 2010. I was admitted to practice in December 1992, I believe it was. I am currently eligible for reapplication to admission, although I haven't reapplied. As you will learn through a lot of the work that we're going to be doing, through this filming, I have, my personal interest is tied up in these proceedings in some ways with Don Bailey's as well, and I've decided to focus on some of these bigger public interest, public service things that we're all part of at this point. I do want to say at the beginning that I made a commitment to myself at one point. I am suspended. I did not fight my discipline. I want to say that I had some personal problems that I let interfere with my practice of law. I do now accept full responsibility for them. I've always accepted full responsibility for them. I accept the punishment that I've been administered for that. I said at one point I was never going to present myself or portray myself as a victim of that disciplinary process. I didn't know the extent to which, to some degrees, I was specifically part of a larger agenda. But I do have to talk about these things. I can do them without crying victim and complaining victim and accepting responsibility for everything that I've done. Because what I have done, what motivates me to be here is that when I went to law school, I did it because it just felt right, and it felt right ever since I walked in the doors. I have never been driven or motivated by any principle other than the principles that guide the profession of the practice of law. I don't think I've ever mistreated a client. I have never stolen money from a client. I've never excessively charged a client. I really, tried throughout my entire career, and I think even judges would acknowledge this, that I've practiced in front of. I tried my very best to do my job the way that I was trained to do it and the way that I like to do it. And it's offensive to me personally what I've learned about this, and I have to, regardless of me being a victim or not, and I'm not going to go through and cry about the disciplinary process as it applied to me, because I agreed to most of what they were saying. But I am going to talk about it, and I do have to talk about my role in it so we can get on to addressing these problems. I guess at this point, I'll just continue going and start with what brought me to Don Bailey back in 2000 or 2001, I guess it was. I had started to become and really felt the feeling of it of a civil rights lawyer before I met Don, and had begun to develop, quite a significant caseload. Race discrimination was always my particular interest. I relate that to a lot of things that don't need to be gotten into now, but I found myself representing a lot of minority I represented a lot of people against Hershey Foods. I represented a lot of people against Penn State University. Those two institutions have the culture and climate in Pennsylvania, in central Pennsylvania in particular, as you see from the Sandusky scandal, under complete control. I'll comment on that Sandusky stuff later on, but I have known that these people lie and conceal and hide information and protect people in that university from exposure to lawsuits, and that they have lawyers who are just ruthless when it comes to litigating cases. I've been the victim of that, and I've been complaining about that for years. And if the federal courts ever had any interest, any real and genuine interest in getting to the bottom of these things, they'd have listened to the likes of me or Don Bailey and others 10 and 12 years ago when we were talking about this, before this stuff got so out of hand. But that being said, I represented a lot of minority contractors as well. I just got connected with the local business minority business community because I had represented some of the minority employees of this Minority Women's Business Enterprise Office of the Department of General Services. A lot of stories that can be told out of that representation, dozens of cases, dozens of clients, a lot of interesting courtroom little dramas along the way. But the bigger theme was after Tom Ridge got elected governor, he had a, I don't know, a program or campaign. I mean, basically it was a clandestine plan to eliminate the affirmative action, all affirmative action programs in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. You do not have to have a position pro or anti-affirmative action. I think it served a useful purpose at certain times in our history. Whether it does now or not, I don't know. But you don't have to have a position on that issue to understand what they did. Because what they did, there were affirmative action programs and contract compliance programs that minority businesses relied on and felt that were there in place for them. And after Ridge took over, he got some crafty lawyers on his staff, and they reorchestrated this program through a series of management directives that they called them, and executive orders, restructuring, rearranging, renumbering, reassigning functions here, functions there, functions everywhere, where at the end of the game, in about 1 year's time, Tom Ridge had effectively eliminated all affirmative, any evidence of an affirmative action program in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania from the public record. And not a single Pennsylvania resident knew about it other than me, because I figured out exactly how they did it. And I mapped it out, and I started to put that in my legal documents, saying, here's what's going on. I know what you did, and we're going to have, so I filed a class action lawsuit against Tom Ridge, against his chief of counsel, Jim Sheehan. And it was on behalf of a minority contractor who, regardless of any affirmative action programs, should have won a substantial multi-million-dollar statewide computer maintenance contract, regardless of affirmative action. This guy was sharp, and he put together a good proposal, and he should have won that contract. Well, and again, I might be, there was a couple different cases where I sued a couple different people, and I might be, I'm not sure that this was the class action or not. That actually might have been another case, but these were all around the same time, and I started talking about, how I mapped out how they eliminated these programs. I still have the documentation around here somewhere. But as I'm handling one of these cases, and I work at a law firm called Saratelli, Schiffman, Brown & Calhoun on Linglestown Road here in Harrisburg. And I was kind of oblivious to pissing people off by filing cases. I mean, I did what I thought I was doing. People came to me and presented me with facts. I went and I looked at the law, and I concluded that this was discrimination. Therefore, I'm going to file a lawsuit. I thought that's as complicated as that equation ever got for me. I didn't think about who I was going to anger or upset, or what kind of cases I should take or shouldn't take, or things of that nature. People were hurt. They want lawyers, and that's what we're paid to do. But in any event, so I'm with this law firm, and I'm naive, I guess, and kind of oblivious to it. But then I file this one case, and I get these attorneys from the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office who always are representing the people that are discriminating against people. The Attorney General's office has represented more civil rights violators than any institution probably in the country. They stand behind these people, they defend them, they sanction and ratify all the wrongdoing that they participate in. I see things the way I see them. I'm the plaintiff's attorney, of course I'm going to say all that stuff. But someone go back and look at these facts and tell me that I'm wrong. Those are the debates, these are the only debates I ever wanted to have when I was practicing law. Who's right and wrong on the facts and under the law? And I always felt in every single case I ever filed that I was, and my clients were. But we filed this case, and the Attorney General's office files a motion with Judge Yvette Kane, and this is back in probably the year 2000, a motion with Judge Kane to have me recused as the attorney in the case. Basically saying, you got to get rid of him as the attorney for the person who hired him and is paying him, this minority business. And Judge Kane grants it. And I didn't sit back and take too kindly to that. I don't think I was rude or disrespectful. I may be disrespectful because I just don't respect. I mean, how do you respect something that is just disrespectful inherently? And I filed a couple motions asking for her recusal, asking for reconsideration. And again, I don't think any of the language, I have gone back in the past year and re-looked at some of this stuff. And none of the language that I used was anything that was improper or over the top. It was just honest. And she denied all that and threw me off as the attorney in the case. I had an affidavit from my client saying that we want him as an attorney. He told us everything about all his prior representation of anybody, everything that I was supposed to do. And then I guess when I started filing these motions and I started not taking this sitting down, and you know, this law firm, maybe they didn't know all the cases that I was taking or filing, and you know, they came to me pretty much with the knock on the door and said, and I have a fine relationship with the people to this day. You know, I say hello and we're friendly and don't have any problems with them at all. But they, you know, pretty much told me, you know, we're getting phone calls about you. You know, we have cases before this judge. I got this huge case there. I'm worried about this. It's time that you move on. And that was a circumstance that brought me to Don Bailey, because I wasn't thinking about moving on. I kind of liked what I was doing. I liked the people I was working with and thought I had a pretty nice situation going there. So all I did is I picked up the phone one day and I said, Don Bailey. I said, I don't know if you remember me, but we met. Oh, yeah, sure, I remember you. I said, hey, you want to practice law together? First thing he said was, I can't pay you, but sure, come on down. And I came down and I've been here ever since. So that's my background, and that's relevant. I mean, I'm not trying to make this about me, but I happen to have, I think that probably because, you know, he and I have worked so closely together, and let me say that, you know, working with Don Bailey has been, you know, the greatest experience of my life, and I've done nothing to deserve working with a gentleman, kind and decent and